questions we wrestle with as Christians about who God is, how do we live out our faith, what is the Bible, what is the truth of the Bible, what are we supposed to believe, how are we supposed to live? There are really big, deep questions that we ask each other, that we ask God, that we wrestle with ourselves. And that's why the Cultivate podcast exists, to help us go deeper in our understanding of who God is, His Word, and the way that He's called us to live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Cultivate podcast at the Grove Church. I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor there with us, and we have, as always, our great podcast producer, creative director, good friend,
Abigail
Boone, from the large city
of Jonesboro,
Arkansas. Jonesboro, the metropolitan area of Jonesboro.
You know you're not from Jonesboro whenever you say borough.
Jonesboro?
Most Jonesboro people say Jonesboro.
With an L?
Yeah.
Now, I can understand dropping the O, because we're a little bit... Our Arkansas dialect is a little bit like French. You know, French, they drop the last letter.
Yeah, not important.
Or you turn O's to Jonesboro.
Burra. Ooh, that sounds weird. I say Jonesboro.
No, you didn't say the L there.
Jonesboro.
No, you're still not saying the L.
No, Jonesboro.
Now you're doing it on purpose. But you just saying it is classic Arkansas, changing the O to
I definitely never say Oro.
Yeah, I'm not from El Dorado. But if you ask me, where are you from? Oh, I'm from El Dorado. I would say that to you.
What do you say?
But if we're just talking, it's El Dorado.
Oh, interesting.
Do you
say Missouri?
Where are you from? If I say, hey, where are you from? You would say, I'm from Jonesboro.
Jonesboro.
But then if you're just casually talking, you'd be like, that was back when I was in Jonesboro.
Yeah.
I mean,
J Boogie.
So, yeah.
That was really important for us to hash out.
But then you said J Boogie. And so then I was completely distracted.
So
we are doing systematic theology right now, more than geography, Arkansas geography and dialects. And we're in a Q&A section. And in my brain, I thought we're going to probably do one on sin. Mm-hmm. And then we got what probably felt like a third of the way through your questions.
Yeah.
But
so
these are some of my favorite podcasts for us to do because it requires minimal prep on my part.
Oh, yeah.
You're doing the prep work.
I am.
Which is great for me.
So
we can do as many of these as you want, Abigail.
Whenever we reverse and you're doing the ones and I'm not prepping anything and I tell people that, they get so anxious for me. And I'm like, I promise you, me and Charlie are not anxious for the episodes where we don't have anything to do.
That's great.
So rest assured, we're sitting here pretty easy.
Yeah, that's great.
No anxiety.
So let's go back. Let's go back to the work that you've prepped.
Yes. Well, we're in the middle of a question. I don't remember how I started it. But we're kind of talking about walking the line between being aware of your sin nature and that you are a sinner, but also believing who God says you are now and not being just totally overwhelmed with the depression that could come you don't want a Debbie Downer or the self-deprecating person that they view themselves as horrible.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's not super healthy, but it's also not super healthy to totally negate the idea that you're a sinner. Mm-hmm. And think so highly of yourself. But then we kind of waded into the waters of, are we still sinners, even though we have been saved if we put our faith and trust into God and what He did on the cross?
Yeah. So,
and you posed the question, but I'm just going to pose it back to you.
Perfect. Great. I know that how this works. So I had these two good friends when I lived in Cabot in the Little Rock area. One was the head of Celebrate Recovery at Fellowship Bible Church in Little Rock. And another guy was ran a homeless ministry.
Okay. Both
of them had a very similar background in that they had struggled with some sort of addiction, alcohol or drugs or a bit of both. You know, they struggled with that. And the guy from CR, which kind of is loosely, based on a lot of the stuff from AA, he would describe himself, as most people in AA and CR do, I am, present tense, an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. My name is Charlie, and I am an alcoholic.
Hey, Charlie.
Present tense. Present tense.
Yeah.
And this other friend of mine talked about how ridiculous that was. Mm-hmm. I was that, and now I'm not. I am not addicted to drugs anymore. Mm-hmm. Why would I say present tense that I am? I am not.
Yeah.
And I was friends with both of them, and they knew each other in a slightly combative way. And so when I would hang with one, and I would just talk to him, and then I'd hang out with the next one. I would just say to the next one the things that the other one said. Yeah, and I would just kind of go ping pong back and forth.
What are you going to do with this?
But in part because I'm antagonistic, and secondly because I was actually fascinated by it. I'm actually fascinated by the nature of that debate.
That you, the third person, could be like, an alcoholic who has not had a drink. I'm an alcoholic and I am 1 year sober. Right.
I'm an alcoholic and I'm 10 years sober. I am 30 years so. Like, eventually, are you ever not?
Right.
I'm a 50 years sober alcoholic, or are you just like, hey, bro, I'm just not anymore. I'm just not an alcoholic anymore. This is not a problem at all for me, right? And so just hearing back and forth from them, it was just a very fascinating couple of years for me, is that because not only in the practical nature of just kind of helping people who are in recovery, because I want someone that I know who is in recovery to have a positive and realistic view of themselves and the redemptive work that Jesus has done in their life. And so hearing it kind of played out this way was just really helpful, not only for that specifically, but I think it speaks to the broader issue that we're talking about here.
Insert whatever condition.
Now that Jesus has forgiven me, am I, quote, still a sinner? Now, we got in the semantics of this in the last episode.
Being characterized.
If by sinner I mean someone who still commits sin, then yes, I am still a sinner. But if by use of the word sinner, am I still someone who is characterized by sin? My answer to that question really is, are you an AA person or not? An AA person with that sort of philosophy and mindset would say, I am a sinner 2 years redeemed by Jesus. I am a sinner 5 years redeemed by Jesus. And you would just like, and I've got my token that I've got my 1 year token, my 5 year token is like, I'm not a sinner anymore, but I am a sinner. All right. And you begin to talk and think like that, or like this guy, like the other guy said, is like that is not who I can be defined. I do not want to be defined by that anymore. I want to be defined by this new thing that has happened, which is freedom. And so to me, they were both right.
Yeah. It's and kind of what got them forward.
Right. I mean,
whatever gets you forward.
Yeah.
Well, it also makes me think you're saying if you are a sinner, you identify that because you're experiencing the consequences of sin, kind of like you saying the neighborhood's on fire. If you don't get that, go watch last episode. But you're not going to understand it if you don't understand the consequences. And so saying I'm a sinner that's been redeemed for 4 years, whatever, you're not, are you still experiencing the consequences of sin? Is that, or is the consequences of sin completely erased once you put your faith in God?
Well, someone who was not a sinner at all by any definition of the word sinner experienced all of the consequences of sin. And I'm not just talking about what Jesus experienced on the cross, but just in living his life, he experienced all manner of consequences of sin. I mean, he lived in a very broken world full of hurt and pain and death, and it got on him all the time. People were just sinning all around him. And so there's a sense in which no matter how redeemed you are, you're going to experience a good measure of a lot of the consequences of sin. I still live in this world. So now we're going to introduce a theological concept that I use a lot. And so I'm sure I've said it on this podcast at some point before, but it's this theological concept of already not yet.
Okay.
Have I been freed from the consequences of sin?
No.
Yes.
Question mark.
I have already been set free from some of that. And I can also say I have not yet been set free from all of that. It is yes and not, it's yes and not yet. And so it's like, it's a progression. I have experienced it in a measure here. and I will experience it fully later. Already, not yet.
Yeah.
Am I still a sinner? No, I have been freed from that in a certain measure, and I have not yet been fully freed from that.
Okay.
Am I free from all of the consequences of sin? Yes, but not yet.
Right.
And there are a lot of things in Scripture that are like that, where it's like, has Jesus come back to establish his kingdom?
No.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he got
Through
that.
us? His son came.
Yeah, his son came and got the ball rolling, and we are experiencing some of that,
but not the full measure of it. Yeah.
Right. And there's just a lot. There are a lot of things that are like that, and so I would not fight with anybody on either side of it. Like, there's a worship song that starts, "Praise Him, all you sinners." You know,
yes.
For me, I was almost going to sing it, but I'm like, you can't.
I was just about to do it, but we're not going to.
We're not going to sing it. Yeah.
I don't remember any of the rest of the song, though.
I'm remembering a lot of the song right now, but I'm still not going to sing it. And so, that's not the right rhythm. It's a very mellow song.
Yeah, I just don't remember the rest of the song.
Should Christian? I mean, like, who's supposed to be
theologically right?
Right, and and there's been past where people who've led worship at the Grove didn't like that, and then there are people who have led worship at the Grove that love that, and I don't necessarily have a theological fight to have either one, because I think it depends on whether or not I want to focus on the already or the not yet.
Right.
No, I am still a sinner in need of constant help from Jesus.
Yeah.
I am still a sinner, and so I still need help. Or no, I want to speak. I want to speak this reality that I have. The reality is I am forgiven, and I want to speak in that reality. The more I speak into that reality and cast this old thing aside. And so, honestly, again, with these two guys, I would say it was a personality difference.
Yeah.
And like you said, what can help you go forward? It is better for me to live as if that is dead. And it is actually better for me to always be reminded of where I was, because it helps me be more mindful in this moment.
Yeah. Well, many things are going through my mind, and most of it, I probably don't mean anything theological by it. These are just things that I'm thinking. So if I step on some theological area that seems crazy, I probably didn't even mean to hit it. But one is making me think of a group that I meet with that they say "yet" stands for "you're eligible to," and so I probably fall in line more with the AA team of knowing that I'm eligible to fall into whatever at any moment. And so it kind of makes me think of, I guess it would have been 2 weeks ago now when you gave the sermon of kind of like the idea that you cannot build a bridge good enough to get yourself back to that good point. And so you really are just like so totally in every way possible dependent on what Jesus did.
Right.
But I feel like I need to put that on me every day, because every day I'm eligible to fall back into whatever. So it's like I need to accept that daily, because if I just say that's dead in me, I think like, oh, my nature is just going to pop right back out into something else destructive. And I forgot about I can't build my own bridge that's good enough to get out of this sin nature that I have. Yeah.
And so again, I think the theology of it is more complicated. But I think on a practical level, it's just like which of those mindsets helps you? Because I could imagine someone who has one of those mindsets and they probably need the other one. Someone who has no, man, I'm free from that, and you're looking at them like, but are you?
Right. Yeah.
Or someone who's like, oh man, I'm still. I was like, and you can tell that that's holding them back.
Right.
You know, I would say in the sense in which we're going to make, if I'm being forced to make a theological statement, I would say that after having come to faith in Jesus, we are no longer sinners in the deepest sense, but we are still people who commit sin.
Right.
That's what I would say theologically. No, we are no longer sinners, but we are still sinners.
Mm-hmm.
But again, in a worship song, which is mostly art, right? It's really more expressing probably that AA, like this is who you were, and you still have some memories of that, and it is because of that you should praise. And so it's like, it's a great song.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting also thinking of, I think it was in the very first episode of Sin that we did, talking about just like what the basic idea of the law itself is. And I mean, the truth is that the sin that we commit, that we're surrounded by, it wasn't not addressed. It was just addressed by somebody else. You know, like we are guilty,
right?
Not just like grace and then it's dead and it never happened. Yay!
Right.
You know, like there is a very real reality of the law and how much it is so overwhelming that there is no way to build our own bridge, like you were saying in your sermon. But I think that's another aspect of it that is really interesting, that it is something that is an actual wrong that offended someone. And we were talking about the glory of God in the episode, and I can't remember, I said it was the halo of Jesus, and we got a little bit closer to it. Of it is kind of like the standard, but the reality that it was an actual offense that occurred is occurring, and it is an actual law that was broken, and there is consequences that need to happen for that. We just have a savior that was willing to do the consequence for us.
Right. And again, recognizing again that we talked about this in the last episode, but also in the theology in the more not Q&A part, right, where sin is more than just I did things. There is a deeper level in which sin has corroded us.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get a little bit practical before we head into our next topic. I have a question to bridge us into our next topic, so don't just hop into Christology all willy-nilly.
Okay.
So first, how do you think we cultivate a healthy awareness of this kind of, this is very Christianese, but sinner saint kind of dual nature of we are, what did you say? Now, not yet? Already not yet. Already not yet. How do we walk that line practically in our daily lives? Like what is some of those maybe habits or routines or worship practices that you do to kind of walk both those lines? Well,
there's a thing that I talk about with our kids when they're teenagers, and it comes up in a lot of different contexts too, but it's easier to talk about it with teenagers, right? Where it's like, am I an independent person, or do I still need my parents?
Need your parents.
Right? Well, but there are times when like, no, I mean, I am perfectly, you don't have to be here with me all the time like I'm two. I am capable for extended periods of time of providing all of the care that I need for myself in a way that I will be both morally and physically safe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not paying the mortgage.
Right.
Right. And so one of the big conflicts that happens between parents and teenagers is, you are already not yet. And then at college is the same way. Like you're more so. You're more already, but you're still not all the way. It's still not yet.
Takes a long time,
right? It's still not yet. And when it comes to, you need to clean your room. You need to take care of your care. And whether or not you can tell me when to go to bed or all these sorts of things, like the kid wants to play the I'm an adult, you can't tell me what to do card, and the parent wants to play the I
don't want to do it.
All right, and say no, you're still just a kid.
Yeah.
And then there are times when the I don't want to do the dishes. Like, well, you're acting like you're still a kid. It's time to grow up and do the dishes. And so, like, the kid plays the card that is most beneficial to them in that particular time, and it's usually the opposite card that the parent is wanting to play.
Right.
They're wanting them to be adults when they're still wanting to be kids, and they're wanting them to treat them like kids when they're wanting to be treated like adults. All that to say, whether or not I am viewing myself as a sinner or a saint, it can't just be whichever one
you feel like at that moment.
Whichever one is to my advantage.
Right.
You can be really, really judgmental to non-Christians when you're on the right side of an issue. And you're like, I can't believe that you're doing this to our country and to this and this and this. And you come across because, like, I exist on this completely other moral plane, and I have the right to condemn you. And then I also put on the back bumper sticker on the back of my car, please be patient. God's not finished with me yet. Not perfect, just forgiven.
Right.
Right. Like so I say that when it can excuse my bad behavior, but when it comes to taking the more higher ground and condemning you, then I get to be a saint.
Yeah.
When really it should probably be inverted. When I'm trying to interact with you when you are still neck deep in sin, I should probably come to you with a humble attitude of just like, I've been there too.
Yeah.
I am, except for what Jesus did, I'm right where you are.
Yeah.
And then when I do something wrong and I hurt you, I say, yeah, that was completely and totally inappropriate. You should be able to expect better from me because of what I've experienced through Jesus. And I'm sorry that you've done that and that I did that to you. And so I think our natural instinct is to use it to use the saint to our power and use sinner as an excuse.
Right.
When really we should flip that.
Call ourselves up.
We should always choose the humbler of the two choices in any given situation. Well, I could be proud, or I'm not going to use it to my advantage. When you use the I'm not perfect, I'm not forgiven as a get out of jail free card,
right?
You're using what Jesus did to get you out of a situation to your own advantage, and it's like, that passage in Philippians 2 where Paul talks about the way that we relate to each other similar to Jesus. It says, Jesus did not use the things that he had to his own advantage, but he released them to humble himself in order to give us what we needed. And so I think that's an important mindset. And so, and again, I think partly too, as you think about disciplines, I think this is probably one of the ones where community has the most value.
Yeah.
I hope that there are people in my life that will come around with me and say, bro, you're kind of starting to come off a little cocky. Or people that would come around with me and say, bro, I hear a lot of negative talk from you about yourself. And I just want to remind you that God loves you and we do too. And so I think sometimes we don't know that we're out of balance.
Right.
And you could probably be doing all the other things right. I'm still reading the Bible. I'm still praying. I'm still coming to church. I'm still doing all the things, but don't know that I've kind of gotten stuck. And it really takes other people to see it, because we are going to have ups and downs. But who is it? We need somebody in our life to say when the baseline's gotten off, because we got ups and downs like this. And then all of a sudden one day we're having ups and downs, but it's a degree, everything's a degree lower, and so we need people like that. Hey, I know who you are, and this current version of you is cockier than who you need to be, or more self-deprecating than you normally would be. Is everything okay?
Right. Yeah. Does this have any connection to that verse that's like working out your faith or your salvation with fear and trembling or whatever?
That's in Philippians as well. And we were talking about that. I'm in a Bible study right now with some guys, and we're studying through Philippians and what the verse gets used a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
because what does work it out mean?
Mm-hmm.
Working out in our context could mean exercising. It's also something that you do with a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
You work it out.
Uh-huh.
Or work it out, Abigail.
Like working out a problem.
Right? Or there is just, I'm just working.
Yeah.
I'm just working.
Yeah.
You've got salvation now. While you're out,
mm-hmm.
You've got salvation. While you're out, please work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more inclined to think that that's what Paul's saying.
Really?
In the same way that you've been saved, you've now been saved. Now go live it out.
Mm-hmm.
That if we said instead of work out your salvation, I said live out your salvation,
mm-hmm.
probably would be less confusing.
Okay.
Go live out your salvation. Great. So that's what I think that means. And so then the short answer to your question is no, I don't think that's what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, now I'll give you my transition question, leaning more into Christology. We talked about Jesus's life and how he did experience the fullness of the human experience, which there's the whole story of him being tempted out in the
mm-hmm.
desert. But we also say about Jesus that he lived this full life that we did, but he was sinless.
Mm-hmm.
So does that put temptation in a different category?
Very similar to the word sinner.
Mm-hmm.
Tempted certainly has two different connotations.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to say, hey, Abigail, you should jump on that table and see if you can make it all the way to the freezer. Okay? That is me tempting you.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to tempt you to do something. So you have been tempted
mm-hmm.
because of what I did. I tempted you.
Mm-hmm.
But then I say, are you tempted by that? You would say no.
Oh.
I'm not going to do that.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Right? I'm not going to do that. And there's no part of me that wants to do it based on you having said it. So I am not tempted by that. And so really, if I am tempting you, active verb, if I use the word tempt with an active voice, I am tempting you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Then yes, Jesus was tempted.
Mm-hmm.
If we use the passive voice, was Jesus tempted
mm-hmm.
by what the devil said?
You think no?
He was tempted by the devil
mm-hmm.
in the sense that the devil tried to tempt him.
Mm-hmm.
He was tempting him. Was he tempted by what the devil said? No. And so there's just a nuance there, because in that one sense of temptation, what we mean is a strong desire to
mm-hmm.
do it. But it says that he was tempted in every way, but yet without sin. And so he was tempted in the sense that the devil was trying to get him to do something,
mm-hmm.
but was not tempted in the deeper sense of
desiring to do it.
He wanted to do it, but chose not to.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Never heard it put that way.
All right. And so, and again, that's,
so we're nothing like him.
But that's what it means. He experienced everything, all the temptation. He experienced the temptations without being tempted by them.
Right. Okay.
Which again, that is a big difference.
Right.
And so if we're gonna go up a level, and now this is kind of where my head is, because Sunday after Easter, we're going to start a new series
mm-hmm.
on what does the Bible say about different things. And
mm-hmm.
I think this is probably one of the most significant Bible study methods we can have, which is, what does this word mean?
Mm-hmm.
And does it have different connotations?
Right.
And if it does, which connotation does it mean here?
Mm-hmm.
The devil tempted Jesus. Jesus was tempted by Satan, right?
Right.
Okay.
Really
what does
different.
That word mean?
Those sentences are really different.
Couple of different meanings of the word tempted here.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to, and it's not like, well, I mean, now you're trying to make the Bible say anything you want. No, I'm working really hard to make sure I'm going to let the Bible say what it actually means to say.
Right.
By defining words and putting that word in a particular context. Like this is the most egregious example. where there's a passage in 1 Timothy where it says that women will be saved through the bearing of children. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I say that to you, and and most people are like completely blown away by that. I thought we were saved by grace through the... As if the only definition for the word saved is
salvation.
is in Christian salvation through the death on the cross. The word saved can actually be used in a lot of different contexts. And so if I'm going to figure out what that means, saved from what?
So you can also be saved by the bell.
If you wake up in the morning?
Oh, that's a saying in a show.
And that was the first line of the theme song, and you just missed it.
Oh.
And you wake up in the morning. And...
Nah.
And,
good show, though.
It's before your time, right? It's before your time.
A little bit.
Yeah. You're very
young. So then answer my question. Is being tempted sin the passive one?
Again, if you someone, I mean, it's like the PSAs when I was a kid. I don't know if they still had them in you, where someone comes and offers you drugs.
Just say no.
Right. Someone comes to you and offers you drugs. Hey, you want some drugs? Like, have you sinned because I offered you drugs?
No, we're talking about the passive one, or the one where you being tempted, the deep desire. Is the deep desire to do something a sin? Or is it just what you act on?
We'll use a word that I think can be more broadly used than how we normally use it. If I say the word lust, we typically limit that to sexual things, but really lust is a broader word than that. Lusting is sin. Craving something that does not belong to you, craving something that is wrong for you. Sin. Jesus himself describes that as sin. Some people like to make a difference between what Paul says and what Jesus says. Jesus very specifically says, lusting after someone is sinful. Wishing someone harm, but not being the one who harms them, also sin. Right? And so calling someone an idiot is on the same level as murder. Calling, lusting someone and having sex with them, they're on the same level. And so, again, those are what Jesus said. And so, lust is sinful. And so then you've got this, spectrum of some sort where it's like, again, whether we're talking about a person, like you're at the beach and you see a person and you think that is an attractive person. Or you see someone's car and you're like, that's a nice car. You drive by their house. That's a nice house. And you go from, I observe something to, I think I would like something like that to, I want that to, I'm going to get that, but I choose not to. Somewhere along the way, you've crossed the line from observation to lust.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Abigail, commit this sin. I don't think I will. Well, think about it. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I see that there are some positives, but the negatives totally outweigh the positives. I'm not going to do that. I mean, you've thought about it and you were tempted by it, but that's different than
dwelling on it.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
But I guess, but I'm not. There's a line somewhere when thinking through something and craving it in an unhealthy way, you kind of flip.
Right.
And I don't think it's anything that I can
really parse out.
I don't know what's going on in your brain.
Right.
But
well, if anything, you just made sin a bigger problem in my mind. So,
yay.
Well, just more inescapable of like, and good that we're about to talk about Christology, but more of a chasm that we cannot cross ourselves.
Okay.
Like of how overwhelming it is in our world. And you just cannot ignore that. Like we were saying, you don't even have to be a Christian to acknowledge that.
Right.
But then how easy it is for us to go against what God designed us to do. And how often, Like, even like you were saying, if you like tried to raise a baby in isolation, like, who knows how many seconds it would take for them.
Right.
Like, it's not just what you're raised around. Like, it's just us. It is in us. And there's so much of it. And
an anger and rage that is birthed out of selfishness. Doesn't take long to get to that.
No. Yeah. So it just...
Which again, parents, I'm not saying that every cry or impulse by a kid is sinful.
Right.
I'm not trying to be that guy. But I think there is a sense in which selfishness and then the anger that comes from that, or the anxiety and fear that comes, I mean, all of these things are ingrained in us. And so I think for us we've got to define sin down in order to get to the point to where we think, no, we don't have, there's no sin nature there.
Right.
I mean, anyways.
There's some comedian that said toddlers are just a little bit too dumb to know that they could take over the world. And thank goodness.
That's good. That's good. Because there's definitely any of the toddlers in your life could own you if they wanted.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. And we'll make that the transition.
Yeah.
Make that the transition. So we'll come back we kind of put our foot in the water. We'll come back to it with some talk about Jesus and Christology. But that'll wrap up our Q&A on hamartiology, on sin. And Abigail, again, thanks as always for those excellent questions and combo, and thanks you for joining us. And if you'd like more information about our church or like to shoot us comments or questions, you can go to thegrovechurch.org/connect. There's a form you can fill out there. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to see you on a Sunday morning. But again, it's Cultivate Podcast with the Grove Church, and thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening to the Cultivate Podcast. Our hope is that you are taking steps to go deeper in your faith, that you are asking big questions and you're looking for answers. We hope that we can be a resource for you through our podcast and any other way that we can help you. You can find all our episodes anywhere that you can find podcasts, including YouTube. And again, thank you so much for joining us.